let's go into a bonus time. Big surprises. Bonus time here on the John Campea Show. We did want to do this as an off the top because this is too big to do as an off the top, so we saved it here at the end. And that is this. Amy Pascal, who is actually a genius movie executive. She gets a lot of crap and has taken a real bad rap from fans, from clueless fans, for a long time. But she's actually sharp. She sometimes maybe doesn't handle interviews so well. Like there have been examples in the past, like even like there have been some very awkward moments on camera between her and Kevin Feige when she's saying some things, then Kevin Feige kind of looks at her, it's like, what are you saying? Like, granted, but she is a great movie executive. She's an absolutely great movie executive. And she's taken some crap for a while. And she did an interview with Fandango since, I guess that's why their site was crashing last night, because they were busy interviewing Amy Pascal. Hey, we're having some technical problems. Later, I'm talking to Amy Pascal. Anyway, so they're talking to Amy Pascal. And she seems to suggest that we are going to get more Spider-Man in the MCU moving forward. Now, for those of you guys who watch this show for a long time, you guys know I have felt for a couple of years that while there's a lot of good arguments to suggest that Spider-Man's going to stay in the MCU, I believe that Spider-Man No Way Home and maybe the events of Doctor Strange 2 are going to lead to Spider-Man exiting out of the MCU and going back over to Sony. I mean, a lot of arguments to the contrary as well, absolutely. I kind of believe that he would go back over to Sony, then pop up now and again in the MCU when they needed him to, but I have felt for years that he's going back over to Sony. And there have been good arguments for why he would stay in the MCU. As a matter of fact, for those of you guys who are familiar and have watched this show regularly, you guys will remember about a month ago, we talked specifically about the very solid reasons to believe that he may actually stay in the MCU. Let's go back and take a look at this. This is from about a month ago. And so I think if you're somebody who believes that Spider-Man is going to be staying firmly in the MCU after No Way Home, I think you've got some very solid, firm, logical arguments to stand behind. The fact that the partnership between the two companies has been amazingly successful so far. The fact that the majority of the fans want Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. And look, up till now, there's been no hint in the story. There's been lots of hints outside of the movies, but within the movies, there hasn't been the slightest hint of a possibility of Spider-Man leaving. So here's what I would say, Raymond. This is what I would say. I would say that, yes, I believe that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU, with the possibility of popping up now and again. I don't know what else you could possibly think Kevin Feige was talking about when he said, our Spider-Man is the one character that can travel between cinematic universes. But that's what I believe. But unlike what you're saying, Raymond, it is not crazy to believe he's staying. There's a lot of very solid reasons to believe he is. And by the way, I probably didn't even cover all of them. All right. So again, that was from about a month or so ago. And you know, you guys know, I believe he's going back over to Sony, but there have been very, very good reasons to believe he was staying in the MCU. Well, muddying the waters today, muddying the waters is an interview with Amy Pascal when she was talking to Fandango, and they asked her specifically, they mentioned about Spider-Man and what the future Spider-Man is. And Amy Pascal said, I'd like to add something, if I may. And they said, okay, what would you like to add? And this is what she said. Now let's read this, but let's read this carefully, because there are a bunch of websites that are misquoting her. So this quote you're about to see is directly from the interview with Fandango. And she said the following: this is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie, Pascal told Fandango. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. It just isn't part of... And then she catches herself. She catches herself. She goes, it just isn't part of... And all of a sudden she realized she was about to say something she's not supposed to say. But she goes, it just isn't part of... Pause. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies. It just isn't a part of... Catches herself. She feels the evil eye of Kevin Feige somewhere looking at her disapprovingly. And she goes on to say, we're thinking this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies, she says. Now, what makes this really interesting, what makes this quite interesting, again, there's a reason I'm pointing this out. Take a very good look at that part where she caught herself when she said, this just isn't a part of, it isn't a part of what, Amy? What did you catch yourself before you told us? This isn't a part of what? Now, here's why that isn't a part is so interesting. Because a lot of outlets are taking that part out of her quote. As a matter of fact, let's even go over to Screen Rant for a second. When Screen Rant was, kind of quoting this, look at what they left out. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going into the next 3. They totally omitted and took out the part where she said, this isn't a part of, and stopped herself. The actual quote, we're getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom and Marvel. It just isn't a part of, that part they took out. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go into the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies. I want to point out a couple of things here that I think people are overlooking in this comment. The first thing people are overlooking is that you cannot underestimate the importance of that part where Amy Pascal caught herself and had to stop. It just isn't a part of... Now, I don't know what she was going to say after that. I don't know if she's going to say... It isn't a part of the MCU exclusively. It isn't a part of the MCU as you've known it. It isn't a part of the trilogy we just already did. It isn't a part of Sunday Brunch. I mean, I don't know what she was going to say, but she was going to say something significant enough that she caught herself, realized she had to stop talking, reset, and then go on and keep talking. There's a couple other things I want to point out. She never does say that we're making a new trilogy with Marvel. She says this isn't the last movie we've made with Marvel. She says we're going to make 3 more movies, but she just says this isn't our last MCU movie. She does say we are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom and Marvel. It just isn't part of blank, blank, blank. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going on to the next 3. This is not the last. I just want to point out, she does not specifically say we're making an entire trilogy with Marvel. That's not in her quote. It could be what she meant. All right? Let's be very clear about that. It could be what she meant, but it's not what she said. And sometimes there's an important distinction. Sometimes there's not. But still, regardless of it's just not a part of part, and regardless of the fact that she's not specifically saying they're making a new trilogy with Marvel, the fact of the matter is she does say something very, very definitive in that first line. This is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. And then the last line of the quote, this is not the last of our MCU movies. Those are big words. Those are important words. Those are pivotal. Now, I have thought for a while, and I've said on this show, that I believe you're about to see Spider-Man doing his movies in the Sonyverse, but that we will probably see him still pop up in the MCU from time to time. That's what I kind of thought. Now I got to rethink this. I think all of us have to rethink this now. And then, Ray, it dawned on me.
Oh, man.
I remembered something very, very important.
Okay.
We've brought this up a few times. We've brought it up a few times. Do you guys remember some time ago that Kevin Feige, when asked about the future of Spider-Man and everything, Kevin Feige said that Spider-Man, in talking about the future of Spider-Man, Spider-Man is going to be the only hero that has the ability to travel between cinematic universes. You guys remember that? Kevin Feige said, Spider-Man is going to be the only superhero that has the ability to travel between cinematic universes. Now, a lot of us didn't know what he meant by that. A lot of us didn't know what exactly does that mean? What could it be? What might it mean? Because obviously at that point, we hadn't seen Tom Holland's Spider-Man travel between cinematic universes. We haven't seen that up to this point. So what does he mean? What's he talking about? Well, I think Amy Pascal, I think I need to reevaluate my whole thought on this now, because with Amy Pascal saying something along the lines of, this is not the last movie we're going to make with Marvel. We are getting ready to be next planet, blah, blah, blah. It's just not a part of the MCU. Who knows? We're thinking of at least 3 more films. We're going to make the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU films. I'm starting to wonder this. When you look at that line combined with Kevin Feige's line that Spider-Man is going to be the one hero that can travel between cinematic universes, I wonder if we're just simply going to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man be in both. I just wonder if we're now going to see Spider-Man doing an MCU movie and Spider-Man being over in the Sonyverse. Now, I have to admit something, and I am not going to say much. I have seen a fairly important chunk of Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm just so you know, so it doesn't look like I'm trying to predict something that I already knew. I'm just telling you this so later it doesn't look like I'm trying to make it look like I had no idea, when in actuality I have seen a part of the movie. It was another one of those things where somebody sent me something and I thought it was going to be a fan edit of some kind, and it's pretty real. It's pretty real what I saw. It's pretty real. But I'm not gonna say a thing about it. I'm not gonna say a damn thing about it. And I'm certainly not gonna share it on social media thinking, look at this great fan edit.
I will share it on social media.
You will not share it on social media. You will absolutely. Ray sneaking behind my back when I'm not looking, getting on my computer and posting.
Direct those super chats to Ray, and I will share it.
Ray will absolutely not share it. There is no way Ray is going to share it. But at any rate, so I just want to make that clear. But now I'm wondering if when you combine Amy Pascal's comment with that Kevin Feige comment, because that has been the big hanging, chad, has been that comment by Kevin Feige that we've never fully understood. What does he mean by that when he says Spider-Man is going to be the one character that can travel in between cinematic universes? So maybe he's not going back over to Sony full-time like I thought for a long time he was going to do. I've thought for years that even though I knew there was a very good chance he was staying in the MCU, I still thought for years that he was just straight up clean going over to Sony. But I've never been able to reconcile what does that Kevin Feige quote mean, though. Maybe this is what it means. Maybe when Amy Pascal is saying we're going to do our next one with Marvel, but she doesn't specify we're going to do all 3 with Marvel, I don't know, maybe Spider-Man is literally going to be a character that moves back and forth between he's going to be in a Sonyverse movie and then he's going to be in an MCU movie. I mean, I don't know. All I know is this. Today, I feel is uncertain because I felt pretty good about my belief that he was just going to go over to Sony, and I can't be that certain anymore. Now I feel pretty in doubt. Now I don't know what it means exactly.
Maybe he's doing the next 3 films with Sony, and then after those are through, make a cut back to Marvel just to connect them.
Or will it be a new Spider-Man trilogy where one of them takes place in the Sonyverse with Morbius and Venom, then something happens, he's able to travel back into the MCU, the second Spider-Man movie happens or maybe the other way around, maybe the first one's going to be in the MCU, then he goes over to Sony, does one over there, and then his third one is going to be back in the MCU. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, because I can't see actually when I think about it, I can't see Spider-Man being gone that long, doing 3 films just with Sony and him not appearing in any Marvel movies in between them.
No, especially
he's
now.
He's such a pivotal character.
Especially since when they announced that Peter Parker animated show with him in high school, my first thought was it was going to be like something totally separate. But Marvel has confirmed that Peter Parker animated show that's coming onto Disney Plus is the Tom Holland Peter Parker, right? And so since that is the Tom Holland Peter Parker, that became pretty clear that they're clearly not going to break ties with the Tom Holland Spider-Man completely, if at all.
He's going to be busy. Tom Holland's going to be busy.
He's going to be busy. But then you go back to those comments Tom Holland made a little while ago, saying that, oh yeah, man, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be playing Spider-Man. Dude, we all know he's already got a contract for a lot more.
But I think maybe he knows how much Spider-Man he's going to be doing up until he's 30, and he'll be like tired of it by then. I meant this. How old is he right now? Like 25 or something like that? 24?
I think he must be 25 because I remember him saying, that I'm doing something wrong if I'm still playing Peter Parker in 5 years.
Right.
And I remember, that's when he turns 30. So I think he's 25 now. Oh, let's find out. What do I got to ask again? Hey, Google, how old is Tom Holland? Find out. 25 years old. Okay, so Google just told us that he's 25 years old. Sorry if I activated any of your guys' Google Home devices there. Hey, Siri. Alexa.
Oh, there. Man, now I just
effed everybody up. I just effed everybody up.
Yeah, maybe.
So he's 25. So clearly, not my Siri's going off. So clearly, if they're doing 3 more films, those aren't going to be done in 5 years. So when Tom Holland was saying, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be playing Spider-Man in 5 more years, clearly you are.
You never know, man. Sony busted out those Venom movies real quick. Remember
when they weren't that fast?
They were faster than
2018 was when the first one came out.
I meant this Venom, the Carnage movie. That came out pretty quick.
It took 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't even know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the first Venom movie, I believe came out in 2018. That was 3 years ago. I mean, maybe it came out in 2019. Guys in the live chat, help me with this to see if I'm wrong about that. But I think Venom came out in 2018. Ray Studios in the live chat is saying, yes, it came out in 2018. So is Jimmy. So is Al Johnson. So,
but I meant the turnaround with the second movie. When they announced it, it felt like it was such a short time until they.
No, it was a year. It was about 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Andy Serkis was working on it for a while. So, yeah, I mean, so that's a 3-year turnaround time there. Now, granted, it probably would have been a 2-year turnaround time if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Right.
But still, even at 2-year turnaround times, you're looking at 6 or 7 years for them to get 3 new Spider-Man movies done. And that's if they only do them in 2-year turnarounds.
Right.
So it's a lot up in the air.
So I think those who don't like Holland as Spider-Man, you better get used to it for a while.
Because I think we're going to have Tom Holland as Spider-Man in both Sony and in the MCU for a while. Again, I think this quote is going to be something that everybody misquotes and talks about and misinterprets and all that kind of stuff, and probably all of us are. But again, this one from Amy Pascal, listen specifically to the wording. This is not the last movie that we're going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie. Pascal told Fandango, we are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie, singular, with Tom Holland and Marvel. It just isn't a part of catches herself before she says something she's not supposed to. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies. See, I still think it's an interesting choice of words by saying this isn't the last of our MCU movies. It sounds like there are going to be movies that aren't MCU, but this isn't the last of our MCU movies. Again, I might be misinterpreting this completely, but I don't know. I think it's very interesting. The one thing is for sure is this. Spider-Man is not, the one thing we can say with absolute certainty is Spider-Man is not permanently leaving the MCU right now. That we can say with absolute certainty now. Something that I wouldn't have thought 48 hours ago. But again, maybe that's the key to that whole Kevin Feige comment about Spider-Man is going to be the one character that can move in between cinematic universes. Has Kevin Feige actually been telling us for years that the roadmap is leading to Spider-Man making movies in the Sonyverse and in the MCU at the same time? Is that what he's been telling us and we just never knew it? Was I just too dumb to clue into it? Did Amy Pascal just confirm that? Did she? I mean, I don't know, but things are different than I thought they were, which is one of the great things about movies. We're always being surprised. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about those comments from Amy Pascal? Does it leave you more certain? Does it leave you more confused? I'm a little bit somewhere in between, to be honest with you. Whatever you guys are thinking, though, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts.